Here's an Algebra 2 with trig factoring examples. This is just a quadratic. What multiplies to be 30 adds to be 13. Well, that would be, what, 15 and 2 would have to be a positive 15, and a negative 2 multiplies to be a negative 30. And then if you did FOIL, you need x and x. Okay, it doesn't look like anything factors out of this. It's a little intimidating to be 6 and 3, but that's just a quadratic pattern. Alright, so let me show you factor by grouping. So we're going to do 8 times 2, which is, or 18 times 2, which is 36. That adds to be negative 15. So I'm looking for my factors. They're both going to have to be negative. So negative 1 and negative 36, that would add to be a negative, but multiply to be a positive. That didn't work. That doesn't add to be 15. But that adds to be 15, and it multiplies to be 36. So we say 18 w to the 6th minus 3w cubed minus 12w cubed. Together, those make 15w cubed plus 2. So we broke apart the 15 into a magic pair of numbers. Now we're going to just use factor by grouping. So I can pull out a 3w cubed. I'd be left with 6w cubed. 3 and 6 make 18. When you multiply w's, you add the exponents. Minus 1. Bring down your sign. Factor out the 2. 6w cubed. A negative and a negative make a positive. Notice that these parentheses are exactly the same. That's required in factor by grouping. So I'm all done. 3w cubed minus 2 and 6w cubed minus 1. So that's factoring by grouping. Some people like guess and check. We'll talk about that more as we go on. Okay, so here's kind of a tricky one. One way you can do this, you can take the square root, you can take the square root. So this is the difference of two perfect squares. So difference of two squares. Some people call it dots for difference of two squares, dots. So we get 8x, taking the square root of that, take the square root of that. So we would have to write it twice. Now it's going to be negative and positive because it's got to add to 0 in the middle. So we've got 96, a positive 96, and a negative 96 makes 0 in the middle. So here we can still factor a 4 out. So that would leave us 2x minus 3. And factor a 4 out again. And that leaves us 2x plus 3. So when I 4 and 4 is 16, 2x minus 3, 2x plus 3. So there we factored it completely. Here we have 4 terms, so the main way we do this is factor by grouping. I notice that they have a 4 in common. They also have an m squared in common. Leaves us with m minus 1. Bring down your sign. All you can do is pull out a 1. And that leaves us with m. And it would have to be a negative 1. Negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. So 4m squared minus 1 and minus 1. Now the trick is that 4m squared minus 1 is the difference of two squares. So this is 2m minus 1, 2m plus 1. You can take the square root of 4, so 2 times 2 is 4. You can take the square root of 1, so 1 times 1 is 1. Positive 2m and a minus 2m give you 0 in the middle. So those make that, and then you also have your final factor, because you need a cubic, so you need 3 m's. Here's the difference of two cubes. There's a formula or a rule that if you have a number cubed minus a number cubed, which we're going to have here, then we can factor that apart. We square our a, we change the sign, we multiply the two together, and we square. So I know that w cubed, of course, is w cubed, and 373, hopefully you realize that that is 7 times 7 times 7. It is something you want to work on. Practice those perfect cubes. So if you have something cubed and something cubed, we have our w and our 7. Oops, I'm sorry, this should be squared. I didn't write that the first time. So we're going to square our w, change the sign, multiply the two together, and square the 7. This one here is called the perfect square trinomial because we can take the square root of that number, we can take the square root of that number, and when you multiply those two numbers together, it is half of the center. That's a special pattern that tells us it's a perfect square trinomial. And because it's a negative 14, it's going to be a negative 1. If you think about it, 7t minus 1 and 7t minus 1, when you FOIL this, you can always check your work. Negative 7t and negative 7t and positive 1. You can always check your factoring. Good luck.